You ever have one of those Christmas mornings where everything looks perfect on the outside? Lights twinkling, the scent of cinnamon rolls in the oven, your kid bouncing with excitement. But deep down, you know something's off? Yeah, that was me this year. My name's Sam. I'm 35, divorced, and trying so hard to give my 7-year-old son, Liam, a childhood that doesn't feel like a battlefield. I live in a small suburb about 20 minutes from my parents' place. Not far, but lately, it's felt like an ocean away. This story isn't just about a missing present. It's about the moment I realized that sometimes you have to burn bridges, especially when you finally see who's been dancing on them while you try to keep everything standing. Growing up, I always knew my sister Claire was the favorite. She's 3 years younger, and somehow everything she touched turned into gold, or at least that's how my parents saw it. Claire got away with everything. Missed curfews, bad grades. Even that time she accidentally wrecked my dad's car in high school while joyriding with her friends. Me? I was the one who should have known better, even if I wasn't there. Still, I did what the oldest child usually does. I kept the peace. I played the role. I graduated, got a decent job, got married, bought a house, had a kid, and then everything sort of crumbled in slow motion. My ex-wife and I split 3 years ago. It was messy, but not volatile. She lives across the country now and only sees Liam during summer break. So most of the time, it's just him and me. My parents like to pretend they're supportive, in that performative way where they post pictures of Liam on Facebook and call him their little angel, but barely remember his birthday unless I remind them. I used to give them the benefit of the doubt. They're old, they're busy, they've got Claire's 3 kids to keep up with. I made all the excuses for them. But deep down, I started noticing a pattern. Liam was always an afterthought. If my parents had one extra toy, it went to Claire's twins. If they had leftover money, it went toward Claire's new deck or the kids' dance lessons. I'd get the occasional hope this helps gas card every few months like a charity case. Still, I kept the peace. I think the moment I started seeing things for what they were was this past fall, when Liam's school had a grandparents' breakfast. It was supposed to be a sweet event. Kids bring their grandparents, they eat muffins, draw pictures, make handprint turkeys. Liam was so excited. He made invitations for both my parents and even practiced what he was going to say when he introduced them to his teacher. I called them 2 weeks in advance. "We'll try to make it," my mom said, with that vague tone that always meant no. I reminded them again 3 days before. They said they were still figuring things out. Morning of? No show. No call. Liam sat there with his paper plate and juice box while the other kids showed off their grandparents. He didn't cry, but I saw that look. The one where a kid realizes they're not important enough to be prioritized. I told myself, again, that maybe they forgot. Maybe they were sick, busy, stuck in traffic. It's amazing the lies you'll tell yourself to keep believing your family cares. Anyway, that leads us to December. I'd been saving up for Christmas all year. Nothing extravagant, just a few things Liam had been eyeing. A Lego set, a Minecraft hoodie, a remote control car he kept circling in every catalog. I also got him a switch case backpack that he didn't ask for, but I knew would light up his whole week. I kept our plans simple. Just the 2 of us, hot chocolate, and a late lunch with my parents and Claire's family like we did every year. My parents insisted that Santa would be dropping off gifts for all the grandkids, and even mentioned they'd picked out something special for Liam this time. I let myself believe it. Christmas morning came. Liam opened his gifts from me and was beaming. You'd think I handed him gold bricks. That kid has the biggest heart. He hugged me, called it the best morning ever, and immediately started building the Lego set. Around 2 p.m., we packed up and drove to my parents' place. Claire and her husband were already there with their 3 kids, 2 8-year-old twins and a 4-year-old girl. Their minivan practically exploded with gifts, each kid with their own mountain. My mom came bustling in with cookies. "Oh good, you made it," she said, barely glancing at Liam before turning back to Claire. I noticed there wasn't a single box with Liam's name under the tree. Now, I wasn't going to make a scene. Not in front of Liam. I figured maybe they forgot to wrap it, maybe it was in the other room. I told myself a lot of maybes while we all sat down for lunch. The adults made small talk while the kids ran around. At some point, Claire's husband handed out the gifts, and I saw Liam looking through the pile with growing confusion. He leaned toward me and whispered, "Did Nana forget mine?" I put on a smile and said, "Let's wait and see." When it became clear there was nothing for him, I gently asked my mom in the kitchen, "Hey, didn't you say you had something special for Liam?" Her face twitched, like she'd been caught. "Oh, we did," she said. "But Claire's kids were really wanting that Lego set. We figured Liam already has so many toys. You know how generous he is." I stared at her for a second, waiting for a punchline. None came. That's when Claire walked in, holding the very set I knew Liam had circled in the catalog weeks ago. She laughed, motioned to her twins, and said, "We gave it to them instead. They actually deserve nice things." And just like that, I felt the floor tilt. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I just walked back to Liam, helped him put on his backpack, and said, "Ready to go?" He nodded, confused but obedient. We left without saying goodbye. I don't even think they noticed. That night, I held it together for Liam. We built the set I gave him, made popcorn, watched The Grinch. He was fine, at least on the outside. But I was spiraling. It wasn't even about the toy. It was about everything. Every time they looked past him. Every time they treated him like an obligation. Every time they reminded me, in 100 little ways, that we were second class. A few weeks went by. I kept my distance. Ignored the group chats. Skipped Sunday dinners. And then, out of nowhere, my dad texted me. "Hey, can you renew the family phone plan this month? It's due soon." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I typed back, "Have your deserving ones handle it. We're done." The thing about sending a message like that, a clean break, a line drawn in the sand, is that it feels incredible for all of 5 minutes. I reread it probably a dozen times that night. Have your deserving ones handle it. We're done. Short. Sharp. The kind of thing you fantasize about saying when you finally stop swallowing your pride. But pride has a way of echoing back. And silence is rarely the end, not with my family. 2 days passed before I got a reply. Not from my dad, but from my mom. It came through at 6:12 a.m., just as I was packing Liam's lunch. A paragraph so polished, I knew she'd been stewing over it all night. It started with, "Sam, we're worried about you," which is code in my family for, "You're making things difficult." Then it veered into, "It was just one toy, and Claire's kids have been through a lot this year. And we thought you were stronger than this." Not a single word about Liam. Not even a mention of his name. I didn't respond. The next week, I got a call from Claire. I shouldn't have answered, but I did. I guess some part of me wanted to see if she had the guts to apologize. "Hey," she said, stretching the word like it was nothing. "So, Mom said you've been in a bit of a mood." That was her opening. No "How's Liam?" No "Sorry about Christmas." Just this casual, mocking tone that made my blood run cold. "I'm not in a mood," I said. "I'm just done pretending." She gave this laugh, short, nasal, fake. "Okay, dramatic. Look, I get it. You're a single dad. Everything's so hard, blah blah. But you don't get to throw tantrums every time life isn't perfectly fair." I don't know what set me off more, the words, or the fact that she said them so confidently, like she truly believed she was in the right. "I'm not throwing a tantrum," I said slowly. "I'm setting a boundary. One that should have been set a long time ago." There was a pause. I think that's when she realized I wasn't just bluffing. "So what, you're cutting us all off? You and your kid against the world?" "My kid," I repeated. "You mean your nephew? The one you watched get humiliated on Christmas Day?" "Oh please," she snapped. "He didn't even cry. He's fine. You're the one making a big deal out of everything. Honestly, I think you're just jealous." I hung up. From that day on, things shifted. The group chat turned quiet. No more invites. No more family updates. I didn't mind at first. The peace was refreshing. Liam was thriving. He had his friends, his school, his routine. We spent weekends building forts, baking cookies, even started a little herb garden on the balcony. It was simple. It was ours. But then the real isolation began. I found out from a coworker, not even a family member, that my parents hosted a big family dinner the following month. "Your sister posted pictures. Looked like a blast," she said, showing me her phone. There they were, Claire and her kids, my parents, even a few cousins I hadn't seen in years. Everyone smiling around a huge table, balloons and streamers and cake. It wasn't anyone's birthday. Just a family appreciation dinner. I stared at the photo, and it wasn't the party that got to me. It was the caption. "Surround yourself with the ones who truly show up." No mention of me. No mention of Liam. Just an underhanded jab that hit harder than they probably intended. Still, I didn't bite. I told myself, again, that I was doing the right thing. That staying quiet was noble. That Liam didn't need that kind of toxicity in his life. And he didn't. But it's amazing how quickly a family can rewrite the story when you're not around to correct it. That spring, Liam got sick. Nothing serious, just a stubborn flu that kept him out of school for a week. I took time off work to be home with him. During one of those quiet afternoons, while he was napping on the couch, I got a knock at the door. It was my dad. We hadn't spoken face to face in almost 4 months. He looked older. Not tired, just stiff, like every bone in his body was pretending it didn't ache. I was in the neighborhood, he said. I just stood there. He glanced past me into the apartment. Is Liam home? He's resting, I said. We stood in silence for a beat too long. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. We got this for him. For his birthday. Liam's birthday wasn't for another 2 months. I took the envelope. Inside was a $20 bill and a birthday card from the dollar store. No signature. No message. Just happy birthday, champ, in glittery font. I handed it back. You can give it to Claire's kids. I'm sure they deserve it more. He sighed. Loud, performative. You don't have to keep doing this, Sam. Doing what? Punishing everyone. Holding grudges. Acting like a victim. I stared at him, and I swear I saw a flicker of doubt. Like for 1 second, he realized how absurd it was to call me the villain in a story they wrote. I'm protecting my son, I said, from people who think love is transactional. He didn't argue. He just nodded slowly, tucked the envelope back into his coat, and said, well, doors always open. I didn't say goodbye. That should have been the end of it. But Claire doesn't know how to leave things alone. 2 weeks later, Liam's school hosted their spring carnival. Bounce houses, raffles, food trucks, all that good stuff. I volunteered to help run one of the booths, mostly so I could keep an eye on Liam while he ran around with his classmates. It was supposed to be a fun day, and it was until I saw her. Claire, walking through the crowd with her twins, acting like she belonged. I hadn't seen her in months. I didn't even know she knew about the event. She spotted me almost immediately and made a beeline. I stepped away from the booth. Seriously? She said, hands on hips. You're really still doing this whole martyr routine? I blinked. You followed me to my kid's school to pick a fight. I didn't follow you, she scoffed. I'm here for the twins. Their friends go here too, remember? Of course. Claire's kids went to the private academy across town, paid for, in large part, by my parents. But she loved to slum it at public events when there were cameras or food involved. She leaned in, dropping her voice. You've turned everyone against you, Sam. Even Aunt May thinks you're being ridiculous. What's the endgame here? I'm not playing a game. Then why are you acting like a child? I could feel my jaw clench. Because I won't let my son be treated like a leftover. Her face twisted. That's not what this is about. You just want attention. You're mad that your perfect little life fell apart, and now you're dragging Liam into your pity parade. I almost laughed. My life fell apart because I spent too long pretending people like you cared. God, you're so dramatic, she hissed. It was a toy, Sam. A single toy. And that's when it happened. Liam came running up, holding a snow cone, face flushed with excitement. Dad, I won at the ring toss. Look, he held up a cheap plastic medal like it was Olympic gold. Then he saw Claire. His face fell. Hi, Aunt Claire, he said, voice small. She smiled. That fake, sugary grin. Hey, bud. Having fun. He nodded, but he didn't look at her. Then he turned to me and asked, quietly, Can we go home now? I looked at him, then at her, and something snapped. I bent down and whispered, Give me 5 minutes, okay? He nodded, still holding his snow cone like a shield, and walked back toward the game area. Then I turned to Claire. I want you to listen to me very carefully, I said. From this point forward, you don't speak to my son. You don't approach him. You don't wave at him across the room. You don't even mention his name to your kids. You made your choice on Christmas. I'm making mine now. Her mouth fell open. Are you serious right now? Dead serious. This is insane. He's my nephew. You made it very clear he wasn't family. She was shaking with anger now, voice rising. You're not taking this out on me. I'll tell Mom. I'll tell everyone. I'm counting on it. I walked away before she could say anything else. That night, I got another message. This time from my mom. Claire said you embarrassed her in public. This has to stop. I didn't reply, because I wasn't embarrassed. I was awake, and I had a plan. After the carnival incident, it was like a switch flipped. Not in them. No, Claire and my parents kept doubling down on their version of events. painting me as unstable, dramatic, bitter, but in me. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was observing. I was taking notes. I was waking up to how deep the roots of this dysfunction really went. But waking up doesn't mean it doesn't hurt. There's this thing no one tells you about walking away from family. Even when you know it's right. Even when the abuse is subtle and the favoritism is blatant. Even when you're protecting your kid, it still wrecks you. It still creeps into your chest late at night when the house is quiet and your son is asleep, and you wonder if maybe you overreacted. If maybe, just maybe, they're right and you're the problem. I started feeling it a week after the carnival, a kind of heaviness. Liam was fine on the surface, but I knew he could feel it too. Kids always do. He'd come home from school and ask if Nana was still mad at me, or if Claire's twins could come over and play again someday. I'd answer gently, but the truth scraped at me like sandpaper. I hated that I didn't have a better explanation then. Some people just aren't kind, buddy. He deserved more. But I couldn't give him more without hurting him. Then came the texts from extended family. Aunt May, Uncle Greg, even some cousins who lived 2 states away. I heard what happened. Are you okay? Claire says you're isolating Liam. That's not fair to him. Your mom is heartbroken. Can't you just apologize and move on? That last one nearly broke me. Apologize? I spent my entire childhood apologizing for things I didn't do, for being too loud, too sensitive, too serious, too bossy. I apologized when Claire stole money from my drawer. I apologized when I got into college and she didn't. I apologized when my wife left and my parents said it was because I was too focused on work. I bent so far backward trying to be good that I forgot what standing straight even felt like. So no, I wasn't going to apologize. But that didn't mean I didn't feel the weight of it all. Because here's the truth. Cutting off family sounds empowering until you're sitting alone on a Sunday, wondering if your kid will grow up asking why his grandparents disappeared. I hit bottom about 3 months after Christmas. It was late March. The weather was still cold and wet, and Liam had just gone to bed after a rough day. He'd come home with a note from his teacher saying he seemed distracted and upset. When I asked what was wrong, he just said, "Everyone talks about their grandma. I don't have one anymore." I nodded, held him close, and told him I loved him. But after he fell asleep, I cried for the first time in years. Not a single tear, not a few sniffles. A full, messy, chest-heaving kind of cry that feels like it pulls your bones apart. I felt like a failure. I felt like maybe I'd overcorrected, gone too far trying to protect him, and ended up hurting him instead. I thought about calling my mom, just to say something, just to try. But then I remembered Claire's words at the carnival. "You're mad your perfect little life fell apart." No, I wasn't calling anyone. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in months. I opened my laptop, and I started writing everything down. Not just what happened at Christmas, but everything. Every instance of favoritism. Every moment of gaslighting. Every conversation where I was told I was too sensitive, or overreacting, or imagining things. I wrote down the way Liam's name was always said with a question mark instead of a period. The way Claire's kids were gifts while mine was a responsibility. I didn't realize it at the time, but that file became the foundation for everything that came next. Because once I started writing, I didn't stop. I started keeping a journal, for myself and for Liam. A way to track my feelings, but also to remind myself that this pain had roots. It wasn't made up. It didn't come from nowhere. And more importantly, I wasn't crazy for walking away. Then I started taking care of myself again. Not in some Instagram self-care kind of way, but the real stuff. I started cooking better meals, not just the quick microwave stuff I usually made after work. I bought a used treadmill off Facebook Marketplace and ran for 10 minutes a night while Liam played nearby. I finally scheduled that physical I'd been putting off for 3 years. I even dusted off my old guitar and started playing again on Friday nights after Liam went to bed. I remembered who I was before all the noise. Liam noticed too. "You're smiling more," he said one morning as we drove to school. "Yeah," I asked, surprised. "Yeah, you used to look tired all the time." That hit me harder than anything Claire had ever said. But the real change came when I stopped trying to prove my worth to people who couldn't see it. I'd been working at the same marketing firm for almost 6 years, good benefits, decent pay, but no real room to grow. I'd always stayed because it felt safe, and I figured Liam needed stability more than I needed ambition. But one night, while scrolling job listings, more out of boredom than intent, I stumbled across a remote role at a creative agency. It paid 25% more than I was making. Fully remote. Flexible hours. Focused on digital storytelling and branding, which was exactly what I was passionate about. I almost didn't apply. The voice in my head, the one that sounded suspiciously like my dad, said, "Why bother? You've got a kid to think about. Don't risk it." But I did it anyway. A week later, I had an interview. 2 weeks after that, I got the offer. When I told Liam, he jumped into my arms. "You're gonna work from home? Forever?" "Looks like it," I said, laughing. We celebrated with homemade pizza and a movie night. The new job was better in every way. My boss actually valued my input. I got to be creative again, not just crank out reports. I had time to pick Liam up from school, help with homework, even coach his little soccer team on weekends. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living, not just enduring. And then, something shifted in Liam too. His teacher emailed me in late April. "I don't know what changed," she wrote, "but Liam has been more engaged, more confident, and more joyful than I've ever seen him. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it." That email made me cry too, but in a good way. We started building new traditions. Sunday morning pancake races. Tuesday game nights. Saturday afternoon, Dad and Liam adventures, where we'd explore a new park, try a new food, or just walk and talk. I told him stories about my childhood, the good ones. And slowly, he stopped asking about Nana and Claire's kids. It wasn't that he forgot, but he understood. One night, as we lay on the couch watching a nature documentary, he looked up at me and asked, "Do you think Claire's kids still have my present?" I looked down at him. "I don't know." He thought for a moment. "It's okay. I like the one you got me better anyway." That was when I knew we were healing. But here's the thing about rebuilding. It shines a light on what's broken. And when you start to rise, people who benefit from your silence start to notice. One afternoon, I got a message from my cousin Rachel. She's one of the few people in the family I'd always been close to, not part of the Claire fan club. She wrote, "Hey, just wanted you to know Claire's been saying some stuff. Real nasty stuff. Telling people you're unstable, that you're turning Liam against the family. Said you stole money from your parents, and that's why they cut you off." I stared at the message. I hadn't taken a dime from my parents in over 5 years. Then came the kicker. "She's also telling people you're planning to sue Mom and Dad over some inheritance thing. Said you're trying to take them down." Claire was telling people I stole from my parents. That I was trying to take their money. That I'd turned my own son against the family. And the worst part? She was getting away with it. Because I wasn't there to stop her. Because I'd done the noble thing, walked away, kept my head down, protected Liam. But I realized something important that night. Silence might be mature, but silence is also a gift you give people who hope you'll stay quiet while they destroy your reputation. No more. I opened up the file I'd been keeping, the one with everything I'd written after Christmas, and I started organizing it. Dates, quotes, screenshots. I pulled old texts, emails, photos. I dug through years of Facebook comments, group chat archives, even receipts. I wasn't exactly sure where it was going yet, but I knew one thing. Claire had been rewriting history. I was about to write it back. I didn't plan on going scorched earth right away. No, if I'd learned anything from Claire, it was the power of timing. I needed to be smart, precise, measured. But first, I needed to figure out what she was hiding. Because her lies were getting bigger, wilder. And lies that big usually meant she was trying to cover something up. So I called Rachel. Not a text, not a DM, a real, old-fashioned phone call. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey," she said, sounding cautious. "Hey," I replied. "Got a minute?" "Always." Rachel and I grew up together. She was my dad's sister's kid, close enough to the core family to see everything, but just far enough outside the drama to not be swallowed by it. She never liked Claire. Thought she was manipulative and fake even back when we were kids. But she also never got involved. Not until now. "I need to know everything she's saying," I told her. "Not just what she told you. What she's told everyone. Group chats, side conversations, even casual stuff." Rachel didn't even hesitate. She's been laying the groundwork for months. Started right after Christmas. At first, it was subtle, like Sam's under a lot of stress, or he's struggling as a single dad. But then it escalated. She told Aunt Linda you screamed at her in public and made Liam cry. She told Uncle Greg that Mom and Dad cut you off because you tried to guilt-trip them into paying for your mortgage. She said you threatened to take Liam away and never let him see the family again. I was stunned. "What?" "I know," she said. "It's ugly. But here's the thing, no one questions her. Because she keeps mom and dad wrapped around her finger. And they control the narrative. I pinched the bridge of my nose, heart pounding. She also mentioned something about the will, Rachel added, hesitating slightly. That made me sit up straight. What will? She said mom and dad are redoing it. That they're cutting you out. That she's helping them protect their assets from you. My stomach twisted. Let me be clear, I didn't care about inheritance. My parents weren't billionaires. But the fact that she was already planning how to divide things and painting me as some threat, that was calculated and disgusting. And then Rachel said something that made everything click into place. She said you were only ever nice to them because you wanted them to pay for Liam's college. That you'd been manipulating them with guilt since the divorce. It all made sense now. Claire wasn't just trying to turn the family against me. She was trying to erase me from the legacy. Financially, emotionally, and historically. And she had my parents convinced it was for their own protection, which meant I needed proof. So I reached out to an old friend, Alex. Alex and I had gone to college together. He'd been a business major with a minor in digital sleuthing, which at the time I thought was just his excuse for being nosy. Now, he worked in corporate security, tracking fraud, sniffing out cyber leaks, helping companies figure out which in turn accidentally sent a confidential doc to the wrong inbox. Ever done any inheritance work? I asked him over coffee. He grinned. You mean like wills and trusts? Yeah. You trying to expose a scam or protect one? Expose. He sipped his espresso. I'm in. Within a few days, Alex had some leads. My parents had, in fact, redrafted their will in late January. He couldn't access the full contents, obviously, but the notary who handled the paperwork was public record. And get this. Claire had been listed as their financial contact and co-executor. That was new. Historically, that role had belonged to both me and Claire equally. Now it was just her. She was consolidating power. Quietly. Systematically. And worse, she'd probably convinced them she was doing them a favor. I needed more. So I made a few calls. Reached out to a family friend who worked at the local bank. Played it casual. Asked if they'd seen my mom or dad lately. Just catching up. Oh yeah, she said. Your sister brought them in a few weeks ago. They added her to one of the joint accounts. I paused. They what? Yeah, I think it was for convenience. You know, in case of emergencies. Convenience. That's how it always starts. Claire wasn't just manipulating them emotionally. She was positioning herself to take full control of their finances. And with me out of the picture, painted as the unstable, estranged son, there was no one to question her. Until now. So I started building my case. I compiled every piece of evidence I could find. Timelines, screenshots, witness statements, even old voicemails where Claire said things like, I'll just tell mom and dad whatever they need to hear, and they trust me more than you anyway. I put it all in a neatly organized folder, digital and hard copy. I wasn't going to sue. Not yet. But I wanted leverage. I wanted truth. And I wanted her to know that the game was over. But to really make it count, I needed an audience. So I reached out to Rachel again. And then to 3 more cousins. 2 family friends. Even a former babysitter who still kept in touch. I wasn't recruiting them for a war. I was inviting them to a reckoning. Just come to Liam's birthday party, I told them. I'm doing something special this year. You'll want to be there. It would be the first birthday party I ever hosted for Liam without my parents. But it would also be the first one where the truth would finally be unwrapped. I rented out a pavilion at the local park. Nothing flashy. Just a bouncy castle, a pizza truck, a table for gifts, and a little slideshow I'd put together. Photos of Liam over the years, videos of our adventures, clips of him singing off-key in the car. I wanted people to see him. Really see him. Not the afterthought version my family had painted. The real, funny, smart, kind-hearted kid he was. Rachel came early to help decorate. So did a few others. All people who'd quietly stayed on the sidelines for years, not out of malice, but discomfort. People who'd believed Claire because it was easier than questioning the story. But when they saw Liam, when they saw the photos, when they saw how happy and whole he was, they started asking questions. Why did we stop inviting you to stuff? Why haven't we seen Liam in so long? Is it true your parents cut you off? And then, as if on cue, Claire showed up. Uninvited. With her kids. I don't know if someone tipped her off. Maybe she caught wind of the guest list. Or maybe she just couldn't stand the idea of not being the center of attention. She walked up with a big smile. Thought we'd surprise you. The kids missed Liam. Liam saw her and froze. He didn't run. He didn't smile. He just looked at me like, do I have to? I shook my head. Claire held out a gift bag. Here. Something special. From Nana and Pop too. I took it. Opened it. Inside was a Lego set. The same one from Christmas. Not a similar one. The same one. Still half wrapped in the same paper. Still with the tiny rip where Liam had started opening it before I stopped him that day and told him, gently, to move on. My chest went still. She'd brought it back. As if that would fix anything. As if returning what she'd stolen would somehow erase what she'd done. I looked up at her. And for the first time, I smiled. Because she'd just handed me the final piece. I turned to the crowd. You know, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. This is the gift my parents promised Liam on Christmas. The one Claire gave to her kids instead. Gasps. Shifting. Eyes flicking between us. She told me he didn't deserve it. That her kids needed it more. And now, 6 months later, here it is. Still unopened. Still taped shut. Claire's smile faltered. Isn't that funny? No one laughed. I stepped closer. You've told a lot of stories, Claire. About me. About Liam. About my parents. But here's the thing about stories. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the little Bluetooth speaker I'd set up earlier for Liam's slideshow. And I hit play. Claire's voice. Clear as day. I'll just tell Mom and Dad whatever they need to hear. They trust me more than you anyway. Sam's never going to fight back. He's too soft. The crowd went silent. Claire's face went pale. I looked at her, voice calm. You counted on my silence. You thought I'd walk away forever. But here's the truth. I've been paying attention. And now, so is everyone else. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. If the birthday party was the spark that lit the fuse, the fallout afterward was the explosion everyone pretended they never saw coming. You could practically feel the shift ripple through the family. Whispers, side eyes, relatives suddenly needing to go after hearing Claire's voice play out loud in front of everyone. But what really set everything in motion wasn't the embarrassment. It was the silence that followed, the kind of silence that only happens when people realize the truth was sitting in front of them the whole time. Claire left that day in a storm of tears, dragging her kids behind her, yelling something about editing and fake audio and manipulation. No one believed her. I didn't raise my voice once. I didn't have to. And that was the moment I knew something. When a liar starts screaming and the truth stays quiet, the truth wins without lifting a finger. But my story wasn't done. Not yet. Because the real revenge, the one that mattered, didn't involve humiliating Claire in front of half the extended family. It involved making sure she and my parents couldn't twist the narrative again. Ever. The next morning, while Liam slept in with the leftover thrill of his birthday, I sat at my kitchen table with coffee and the folder I'd built over months. Evidence. Notes. Timelines. Screenshots. Financial details. Names of contacts. Statements from Rachel and a few others who had quietly stepped forward after the party. I wasn't aiming to ruin Claire's life. I just wanted her out of mine. And I wanted my parents to see, really see, what they had allowed her to do. So I called an attorney. Not a flashy courtroom type. A calm, sharp, matter-of-fact estate attorney who specialized in family disputes and financial oversight. He read through what I sent him, slowly, carefully, and when he finally called me back, all he said was, "You've been dealing with this for a long time, haven't you?" "Too long." He exhaled. "You did the right thing documenting everything. The will changes, the financial adjustments, the account co-signing. None of this is criminal by default, but it's concerning. Especially because your parents are elderly, and your sister had exclusive access to them during that time." I asked the question that had been gnawing at me since Rachel first mentioned the inheritance. "Is she stealing from them?" "Not necessarily," he said, "but she's making decisions for them. And that is a problem." He used a term I'd never heard before, undue influence. "It means someone is manipulating another person's decisions for personal gain," he explained. "If Claire pushed your parents into restructuring the will, cutting you out, or granting her control over accounts, that could qualify." "And what do we do?" "Well," he said, "first step is a conversation. A structured, documented conversation. Not a fight. Not a confrontation. Something formal. Something where no one can lie about what was said." I didn't want to do it. Not because I was scared, but because the thought of sitting across from my parents and listening to them justify giving everything to Claire made me sick. But the attorney insisted. "It's the cleanest way to expose what's really going on." So 2 weeks later, I found myself in a small conference room at his office, Liam with Rachel for the afternoon, and my parents sitting across from me looking uncomfortable but determined. Claire wasn't invited, by design, though I could practically feel the invisible strings she'd tied to them tugging with every shift of their shoulders. My attorney started the meeting gently. He wasn't confrontational. He wasn't accusatory. He asked simple, clean questions. When did you decide to change your will? Why was Claire listed as the sole executor? Why did you add her to your joint account? Were these decisions made independently, or did anyone persuade you? My parents exchanged looks, long, confused looks, and my heart sank. Not because they were lying, but because they truly had no idea what decisions they had even made. My mother wrung her hands. Claire handled all the paperwork. She said it was easier that way. My father nodded. She said you were struggling, that we needed to simplify things so she could help us. My attorney wrote something down. Did you ask Sam about this? My parents froze. In the silence that followed, their eyes flicked toward me. And for the first time, I saw it, uncertainty, doubt, guilt, a crack in the foundation Claire had built. No, my mother finally whispered. Why not? The attorney asked softly. Another long silence. Then my dad spoke, voice low, tired, heavy. She said you didn't want to be involved anymore. My chest tightened. I leaned forward. I never said that. Not once. You believed her instead of asking me. My mom wiped her eyes. We thought she was helping. Helping who? I asked. You? Or herself? The weight of that question landed like a brick. No yelling. No accusations. Just raw, undeniable truth. The attorney continued his gentle questioning, peeling back layers, exposing inconsistencies. Nothing aggressive, just facts. And the facts painted a picture so clear my parents couldn't pretend anymore. Claire had positioned herself as their savior. She'd isolated them, controlled their narrative, driven a wedge I didn't even realize was being hammered in until I saw the cracks. By the time the meeting ended, my parents looked absolutely shaken. My attorney stood, shaking their hands politely. I'm not suggesting legal action, he said calmly. Just recommending you review all documents and make decisions independently, without input from either child. And if you choose to make changes, we'll do it transparently, together. When my parents left the room, my mom paused in the doorway and looked back at me. Her voice was small, fragile. Sam, were we wrong? I didn't sugarcoat it. Yes. She didn't argue. The fallout began almost immediately. Claire showed up at my parents' house the next morning yelling. Actually yelling, so loudly the neighbors heard. My dad called me 2 days later sounding defeated. She said we betrayed her, that we humiliated her, that you manipulated us. I didn't flinch. Did you believe her? There was a long pause. No, he said. That was the moment things shifted. Really shifted. Not because I wanted them to take my side, but because they finally realized they'd never been making decisions at all. I wasn't there for the argument that followed, but Rachel sent me a message later. You won't believe this. Claire packed her bags, took her kids, and left the house screaming about how mom and dad didn't deserve her help. It was something. I didn't celebrate. I didn't cheer. I didn't post about it or gloat or tell Liam anything. I just sat quietly on the couch, letting the weight of it sink in. For the first time in years, I felt the tension in my spine melt. But the biggest turning point came the following week. My parents asked to see Liam. Not at a family event. Not with Claire there. Not with strings attached. Just them. I hesitated. I needed it to be right. Safe. Sincere. So I agreed on one condition, that they meet me in a neutral place. A quiet park. No expectations. No heavy talks. When Liam saw them, he stopped in his tracks. I held my breath. Then he ran to them. My dad bent down and hugged him like he'd been waiting years to do it. My mom's eyes filled with tears. She didn't try to explain everything that happened. She didn't excuse it. She whispered, "We missed you." And for once, I believed it. They didn't mention Claire. They didn't bring up the will. They didn't ask for anything. They just wanted their grandson back. Over the next few weeks, the relationship grew, slowly, on my terms. Boundaries were respected. Liam was treated kindly, thoughtfully. And me? They treated me differently too. Not like the kid who should have known better. Not like the afterthought, but like someone they genuinely wanted to rebuild with. But the real ending, the actual revenge, happened quietly. My parents redid their will. This time with a different attorney. This time without Claire. And not because I pushed them. Not because I asked. but because they finally understood who had been pushing them all along. They called me one evening after Liam had gone to bed. My dad cleared his throat the way he always did before saying something important. "We fixed things," he said. "The right way this time." My mom added, "And we're making sure no one, not even Claire, can change it without us together." I didn't ask for details. I didn't want them. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about clarity, accountability, truth. And as for Claire, she isolated herself so thoroughly that the family eventually stopped taking her calls. Not out of spite, out of exhaustion. People saw her clearly now, not because of what I said, but because of what she did. The best part? I never had to confront her again. Never had to fight. Never had to scream. Her downfall was her own creation. All I did was shine a light on it. And Liam? He got something better than revenge. He got a family that finally showed up for him. One afternoon, months later, he and my dad were sitting on the grass building a model airplane together. Liam looked up at me from the blanket and said, "Dad, I think things are good now." And for the first time in a long time, I realized he was right. And the story that started with a stolen Christmas present ended not with a dramatic explosion, but with something quieter and stronger. A family rebuilt, a son protected, and the truth finally landing where it needed to. Because in the end, the best revenge wasn't ruining anyone's life. It was reclaiming mine.